muy cerca el polaco.
Y acá se viene Griezmann, la cambia todo. Puede estar Julián y le pegó por dentro Julián.
Consolidation. Here's Hakimi. Now it's Gonzalo Ramos.
And the misery could deepen for Barcelona. They're racing forward. Adams in the middle. Adams!
Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I do want to speak about Hansi Flick's high defensive line and how teams are exploiting Barcelona's high defensive line. There is a clear pattern that I have been seeing over the past 14 months, and we're especially seeing that pattern in this season. But when you look at teams like PSG, for example, a team that we have faced 5 days ago, or maybe even Sevilla from today, or maybe even the Real Sociedad from a couple of days ago, Rayo Vallecano, maybe even Bayern Munich from last season, a lot of them do have a very similar approach against FC Barcelona. All of those teams that we faced, none of them had any interest on dominating possession. Like for example, you look at that match between FC Barcelona and PSG, all of us came to one conclusion that PSG are going to want the ball 100% of the time and we're going to let them have it. However, when you look at the end of that game, PSG only finished with 53% of the possession and Barcelona had 47. That is basically 50-50. And in the first half, Barcelona specifically had 56% of the possession. PSG only had 44. So you can see that it was very even. And the reason why is because PSG allowed themselves to see less of the ball because they were not interested in getting the ball. They were looking to split FC Barcelona and to look for those 1v1 offensive or defensive duels. And that is exactly what Rayo Vallecano, Real Sociedad, Sevilla, and all of these other teams have been doing against us. And they have been wanting to expose our tactical weaknesses. You combine those defensive and offensive duels with more organization and more intensity coming from the opposition, Barcelona were going to get annihilated. And we're seeing that in live time. This is why in the match against Sevilla, Barcelona's starting 11 looked very unbalanced. It is because they were exposed. There was no chemistry. Sevilla dared to go up against FC Barcelona and go for those 1v1 offensive duels. They dared Gerard Martin. He was not the best. They dared Araujo. Also not the best. They dared Lewandowski, Dani Olmo, Ferran Torres. And they said, we have more football than you. We can get over you guys easily. We just have to press more aggressively. And all of those players that I have just named, they did crumble under pressure. So Sevilla understood the assignment perfectly. They pressed aggressively, forced chaos, and we collapsed. That, my friends, is the weakness to FC Barcelona's high defensive line and our system. We're going to be hopping on and off on different games from the past 3 to 4 weeks. So let's go back to the Real Sociedad match. Real Sociedad, even though we did win that game, they executed one of the most suffocating man-marking systems that was seen against FC Barcelona. We saw their midfield trio tracked Barcelona's midfielders step by step, always following them, eliminating more time and space even for Frankie de Jong and his teammates like Pedri, Ferran Torres, Gerard Martin, and other players. This man-oriented system created a pressing shape similar to the 4-1-3-2 where Kubo and Oyarzabal pushed high to eliminate Barcelona's numerical advantage during their build-up. And that is why Barcelona's center backs in that match were forced to make rushed clearances, a lot of misplaced passes, and the rhythm just sucked. It was really bad. Fast forward a few days later against PSG. PSG just said, we're going to do that, but we're just going to crank it up another 50%. That's basically it. PSG pressed man-to-man across the whole pitch, dragging Barcelona into constant physical duels. Not even like footballing duels, like technical duels. We're talking about physical duels. And we saw Dani Olmo struggle a lot as a number 10, getting outbodied, just taking him off the ball very easy. Once again, destroying the rhythm that Barcelona were trying to build. Now, let's go into greater detail about this, right? Because what are like some of the key things that these teams have been doing against us that also does work? And that is the secondary run pattern. This definitely does exploit the high defensive line. The biggest cheat code against Barca's high line is the midfielders to make those secondary runs. Kubo explained this perfectly. He stated, the key is the secondary runs from the midfielders. They stop the line watching the striker or the wide men, but they forget the runs from the second line. And that one little detail has been killing Barcelona all season. We saw Las Palmas and Celta also use the same blueprint. Jose Campaña also summed it up perfectly, and he stated, when we had the opportunity to run in behind, we had chances. We knew that with fewer touches, we can hurt them the most. And Flick has been brutally honest about this situation. Like for example, he admitted that there is a growing disconnect between the attack and the defense. He knows that we cannot transition well into the attack as much as we used to. He explained that when Barcelona's pressing drops even slightly below 100%, the backline does get brutally exposed. He states that the system does depend on like absolute coordination and great intensity. Even 90% effort is simply not enough. And I hope that this is going to be something that we do bring when we come back from the international break with more fresh legs. We're able to be more more organized when pressing up top and not being so lazy and half-assing all of our runs, because that's what's going to allow for the opposition to make those passes out wide or make a long ball to one of the forwards. And there has been statistical evidence on this whole decline. Barcelona's offside trap efficiency has dropped. When it comes to catching teams offside, they went from 6.92 times per 90 and now only doing it 5.83 times per 90. So I did talk about this in my last video, and I did state that, you know, when we have such a problem like what we have been explaining in this video, one of the things that really does surprise me is that Barcelona show very little adaptability when plan A does not work. Against Real Sociedad's man marking, they never really adjusted. No extra support in build-up, no positional tweaks, no amplifying your energy, maybe doing a little bit more. I'm telling you guys, and I'm gonna keep it very real with you guys, if we continue in this way, with the intensity only being at 70, 75, 80%, not being organized when pressing up, not being very well aware of those secondary runs, not being able to also win those man-to-man marking duels, if we just continue in this way, Barcelona will not win anything. I promise you guys, it will not win anything. I have explained before that our system works really good when we have our players and nobody's injured and we are really committed to our model with maximum intensity. Our system does work. We can defeat anybody. But if you're gonna come with the exact same idea and only half-assing these ideas, you will lose everything. You will not win La Liga. You will not win the Champions League. And please do not come here and tell me that Barcelona need to focus on the Champions League because La Liga might be thrown away. Maybe they're just not interested in La Liga because we won it last season. Like, no, bro. This is how life is gonna look if we only talk about the Champions League and only wanting the Champions League. I understand that it has been 11 to 12 years since the last time we have won the Champions League, but life is going to look like this. Our football life is going to look like this if we just focus on the Champions League, which is to lose against Sevilla 4-1, maybe tie against whoever, I don't know, Leganés 1-1, 2-2. It's going to be ugly. We do not want that type of life. We want to for sure be consistent and win all games in La Liga. That is the most priority, the top priority, the number one title we should always compete for no matter what. I understand that the Champions League has this different aura, but still, La Liga is our priority. We want to be the champions and kings of Spain. And historically, it has always been shown that if you do well in the league, you would also do well in the Champions League. It does not go the same way when talking about doing well in the Champions League and into La Liga. Like that doesn't exist. It's because these are two completely different systems and competitions. If I see that Barcelona are going to be lowering their arms down for a league match only because they want to do well for the next Champions League match, which is, let's just say, for example, Bayern or Arsenal or City, then Barcelona are going to go down to the ground. They will not win a single thing. Not the Champions League, not La Liga, not the Copa del Rey, not the Spanish Super Cup, nothing. We won't win a single thing. And Real Madrid will win everything. Atletico Madrid might win something. Athletic Club might win the Spanish Super Cup, but Barcelona won't win nothing. I don't care if we have Musiala, Haaland with Messi and Ronaldo and Jesus Christ as our defensive midfielder. We still won't win anything because of our system. So if we're going to fully commit to this system that Flick does not want to like remove, we have to commit. The high defensive line only works if pressing up front is perfect. And we don't see that right now. I understand that right now we are missing players like Rafinha, Lamine Yamal, Gavi, Fermin, but something needs to change for now, temporarily, as those players continue to recover. And to the players, I don't know if these Barcelona players are listening, but Flick's structure depends entirely on flawless timing between the press and the backline movement. Any hesitation, any second guessing, taking yourself out the game, not being 100% focused, it's just a setup for collapse. That is it. I think that right now, these players, and maybe even Flick, which is very surprising to say, maybe we can learn a few things from Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool and Pep Guardiola's Manchester City. I remember with Klopp's Liverpool, one of the reasons why his high pressing system worked so great and why they were never lost and why they were never exposed was because they had very coordinated triggers, right? Immediate ball searching after losing possession, great spatial awareness as well, like great communication. Every player understood their cover zone. They know exactly where to be at. That was it. And of course, you combine their elite conditioning, that system was always going to work. The same thing can be said with Guardiola's Man City. They were able to quickly switch between a 4-3-3 to a 3-5-2 depending on the game and how they were playing. They were always compressing the opponent's half to sustain a lot of dominance and always being communicative between the defensive line and the attacking line. These are things that should be assessed and talked about at Barcelona and must be implemented immediately. I honestly think that we should be a team that can adapt to a 3-5-2 system. I think that a 3-5-2 system, when needed, can give us a lot of benefits. Like, for example, it gives us a stronger defensive structure. You have a 3-man backline and then you have your wingers on the side, like Balde and Jules Koundé, or maybe include Rafinha on the right wing position in that 5-man midfield. You also have the wide pressing coverage as well that we do need. And lastly, you have the man-to-man adaptability when going up against various opponents. All in all, I hope that things do change when we do return. Flick even confirmed, and I quote, "After the international break, key players will return. It's vital everyone reaches peak form." That means that we're going to start seeing a lot of more rotation happening because of the amount of players that are going to be returning, great load management, a lot of squad trust, and hopefully it does give us the results that we we do need, because this is the exact same month, my friends, October, where we are going to be facing Real Madrid, a team that contains Kylian Mbappe, Bellingham, Vinicius. We talked about how exposed we can be with our high defensive line. Can you imagine this type of weakness going up against Mbappe and Vini and Bellingham or Arda Güler? It's going to be chaotic. And so that is it right here. That is going to be wrapping up today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.